So in this video, we're going to have a casual conversation about how to hire a developer. As a startup, a founder, you may be in the position to need to hire a developer. And you may be struggling with it for a number of reasons. So let's just have a high level conversation about what I would do if I was trying to hire a developer. Number one, have a very clear plan about what you're trying to build. And the best way to do that is to have at least a high level requirements document, which is basically just a really simple document that says what you're doing, who you're doing it for, what are the elements that need to be involved in this app or product you're building, it's all of the details to a high level degree. It should be human readable. You shouldn't have to be a computer science person to decipher what's in this document. It should have a lot of bullet points, just really simple, bop, 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 right? So it's really simple and declarative between you and the developer you're trying to get to read it. And that would be like one of the very first things I would do. And if you're having trouble doing that, you should check a look at my other video where me and ChatGPT sat down and wrote a pretty kick-ass requirements document for an app. Okay, what's after the requirements document? Well, if you've given this candidate a requirements document and he should ask a lot of questions. Asking questions is a great sign for developers. I've seen it a lot where potential candidates ask zero questions, they have zero understanding, but they want the work, so they're going to say yes. And to be quite honest with you, in the time that we're in, you might run into a lot of that. So you definitely want a lot of questions being asked so that you can see that they have an understanding and they might reorient something that you think you understand. And this is a great part of the process. So there should be lots of questions going back and forth. If there were no questions, I would be a little suspicious about the said candidate who didn't ask any questions about the thing that you're asking them to build. Another area you might want to, it's hard to do sometimes because you may be looking for a developer who has experience in a certain subject matter area, but that doesn't mean that the developers you have that expertise. But sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes you run across a candidate who has worked on similar projects or has some experience that's relative to what you're asking them to build, and that is great. It's very helpful. It adds a lot of context, and I think that that's really good. So what else do you need? Well, once the developer has taken a look at your high-level requirements document and they've asked the appropriate amount of questions, you should establish their availability in detail. Don't assume, I'm assuming, unless you're hiring a full-time employee, which if you are, great, then you could set the times of working, ways of working. That could be a conversation between you and the developer you're trying to hire. But everything needs to be clearly discussed. I can't tell you how many times I've come into a situation as a CTO and I ask who's my team, and it's just really some people who kind of work on the project or occasionally they work on the project. You can ask them a question, but they're actually not being paid, or maybe they're being paid. All these things need to be really clearly defined. If you have a team that is part of a startup and they're working for equity, then I would assume that every person on that team has a partnership agreement that has a full list of their roles and responsibilities and what they're being paid over what period of time, what their equity vests out over time, and everything is understood, signed by you, signed by them, how much equity they're getting. All of those things should be taken care of. Again, I see a lot of people with very vague references to what the ultimate goal or what the compensation will be for working on this project. I'm just going to be really straight with you guys. A lot of founders, you drop the ball here. You cannot expect anyone to take your product or your thing serious if you don't take these details serious. Okay, what else? So you've given them a document, you've talked over some of the details about ways of working, when, where. Is this a remote opportunity? Do you have an office? Are you expecting this person to go in the office? I mean, it's pretty hard to get developers to come into an office these days. So you need to have a plan for that. Based on your budget, you also need to be pretty realistic around this part, because this is one of the details that either ratchet a salary up, like, hey, I have to have somebody in the office and I'm willing to pay more because I know you guys want to be remote. But if you're comfortable working with remote, that's great, as long as you have all the tools that help you, that you can use to manage a remote team. A project management tool, I personally like Asana, Monday, Trello, there's literally a ton of them. It doesn't matter what tool you have as long as you use the tool. Great, so you've discussed ways of working, how much, when, where, and if you're working on an hourly, how do you gotta have a document that speaks to how, like, if you're working for equity or not working for equity, you need to have a document that speaks to how you're going to get paid. So we talked about equity and some strategies there. You should talk about, hey, we pay every 2 weeks, once a month, twice a month, every week. These things need to be clearly spelled out so that you can have an understanding from you to the developer, and the developer has an understanding of what he's going to do. Again, I hate to say it, but startup life is tough, and you may not be in a position to pay every week. You might have to pay once a month. Whatever your circumstances are, you need to be super clear with your potential developer. Okay, so we haven't really did too much talking about validating the developer, because that is a really big conversation. I'm assuming that if you're talking to a developer, that you have checked their references, you've looked at the things they built, and then you've asked very specific questions about the things that they built. I can't tell you how often I'll have to be called in to evaluate another developer from another team, and it turns out, this happens a lot with offshore, to be honest with you. And I'm not disparaging offshore resources. I have an offshore team, but I have seen this quite often, where the work that is being given to review is not even created by the team that is giving you the document. And I know as a founder, you're not going to be able to, get into the weeds of the code, but just asking very pointed questions can sometimes raise concerns or just put concerns to rest. The developer should be able to speak to the things that he did in detail, not just high level, but detail. So I would definitely ask to see their work, ask to speak to someone they've worked with. Again, all of the normal things apply. You can look at their GitHub. I mean, if you're not technical, I'm not sure what you're going to be looking for. So I'm kind of gearing this towards someone who's not super technical. Maybe a good plan to do is to have someone who is technical actually do the interviewing. I just want to add something here. Listen, in this day and age where developers are expensive and kind of hard to come by, having a developer who doesn't have a lot of experience is not a bad thing. Sometimes a new developer is a blessing, because you don't have to untrain bad habits. Some more mature developers have a very specific way of doing things that might not work for your plan. So it's a mix of things. You got to consider your budget, your timeline, and what resources are available in your area. And what I would do in that case is I would keep all of those things in mind when I'm judging which candidate might be the best fit for me. So I might be okay with starting with a junior candidate, because the junior candidate has more time to put into the project. he can learn and grow with the company, and that might be the best thing for me and my time and my budget. I might need a super senior person because this is a very specific tech stack and I need results right away. But both of these scenarios have different pay scales. You can't expect to pay a senior person what you would pay a junior person, and you shouldn't pay a junior person what you're expecting to pay a senior person. Now, if you're wondering what a developer should be paid, that again is a much deeper conversation. What I would do is I would do some research. I would look online, I would look on job boards and see what the job boards are paying and extrapolate based on where I'm at in comparison to what the job boards are paying. So one of the really important things, everything needs to be documented. If you hire a developer and they're working on it, there should be a statement of work that is written. Like if it's a contractor and they're working for you, they should be giving you a statement of work. If it's a W-2, then you should give them something that lays out how we're working. So these things are the best way to help inform and educate the process of, what we're doing, how long it should take. All of these things should be should be confirmed and signed in the statement of work. A statement of work is basically a contract that says the what, the how, the when, all in detail, like who we're reporting to, what method we're using for reporting, how much we're getting paid, when we're getting paid. I highly recommend using milestones as a way to manage payouts based on approval of the items that have been worked on through the milestones. I think if you take a very slow approach and just be really declarative in your needs and document all of the things, you can have a better experience hiring a developer. If you like this, you have questions, like, comment, share. I'll see you in the next video.